Hello friends, my name is Gia Graham. I'm a professional illustrator and I'm currently battling creative block. And it sucks. Now, I've been doing this whole working artist thing for a very long time, so this isn't new. Even though I've experienced it before, it doesn't mean it sucks any less, but it does give me enough perspective to know that it won't last forever. Having creative block doesn't mean that your artistry is lost or it somehow disappeared. It doesn't mean that you're a failure as an artist, and it's not a judgment on your identity. It just means that your creative flow has temporarily been obstructed. Think of your creativity as a stream. So it's normal to have rocks in a stream, right? And the rocks in this analogy are your potential blocks, like self-doubt, perfectionism, stress, imposter syndrome, lack of inspiration, lack of motivation, the list goes on. Now, the stream can typically navigate around the rocks without much effort. When everything is in balance and the rocks are small, they can coexist with no problem. Now and then, a larger rock will fall into the stream. If that rock is just medium-sized, it will cause a disruption, but the stream still manages to flow around it with some effort. In other words, you can still feel stress or self-doubt or any other external or internal pressures and still manage to push through and work around it. Every once in a while, though, a giant boulder will fall in and completely obstruct the flow of your stream. The keys to overcoming creative block are to, first of all, try to figure out what kind of boulder crashed into your stream, and then figure out how to chisel it back down to a manageable sized rock. For me right now, my boulder is made mainly of external stressors. I mean, let's be real, things in the US are intense right now. And then the other part of my boulder is creative overwhelm. I think there's sometimes a misconception that creative block means having no ideas, but sometimes it's actually the opposite. Sometimes you can have really big, incredible ideas, but the amount of work and time and energy it would take to bring those ideas to fruition just put you in a state of paralysis. I don't know if this is an actual phrase, but I like to call that idea overwhelm. And similarly, there's also project overwhelm. For example, right now I need to create a collection for my art licensing portfolio. Ideally, I would send my agent a new series of artwork every month, but it's been 8 months since I last put together a full collection. And at this point, it feels like a colossal task, which is making me feel stuck. So how do I combat this? How do I chisel this big annoying boulder back down into a manageable rock? The first thing I try to do is to just separate myself from the emotion as much as possible. Whenever you notice negative thoughts swirling in your mind, telling you what's wrong with you, get it together, you suck at this, you're such a failure. Sometimes you have to defend yourself from your own negative thoughts. Just kind of be like, not too much. I'm going through something right now. Just give me some space, give me some grace. And don't be afraid to say it out loud. And that just kind of helps to get you in a more objective space rather than wallowing in the emotion. And from that objective place, you can start to take steps towards bringing yourself back to balance. For me personally, I've been diligently trying to reduce the external stressors by creating a peaceful bubble around myself. So I avoid watching the news as much as possible because yikes. I'm trying to only engage in social media that I find heartwarming or uplifting and fun. And I've been trying to stay physically active as much as I don't want to. Honestly, sometimes I just want to lay in a lump on the couch. But, I'm trying to walk on the treadmill in the afternoons or just do something to stay active and keep my nervous system regulated. In terms of the project overwhelm, this might sound counterproductive for a creative person, but I realize that I have to think small. Rather than looking at this project as this giant task that I have to tackle, I'm just going to do one small thing. So instead of trying to conceptualize an entire collection, I'm just going to do one drawing. And I'm going to set some parameters for myself so that my brain doesn't try to turn it into a whole complicated thing. So this drawing will be just a simple sketch, I'm going to make it one color only. I'm color obsessed, so that will stop me from spinning my wheels trying to find the perfect palette. To help keep me motivated, the subject will be something that I like, enjoy, or I'm passionate about. And I'm going to stick to something easy to draw. And I'm also filming this video to keep myself accountable. Drawing flowers comes naturally to me, so I'm going to start there. And I also find gardening to be a really peaceful and grounding activity, so I'm going to go with some kind of gardening theme. After scrolling through a bunch of pictures from my own garden, I decided to draw a watering can filled with wildflowers. That feels simple enough. I'm sketching with the gloaming brush, which is a new favorite of mine, and by the way, I'll link that brush review video if you're not familiar with this brush and want to check it out. And I decided to sketch everything in green. I didn't think too hard about it. I just picked a nice green from one of the palettes that I already had. And I decided to go with a vintage looking watering can just because the shape is more interesting. So here I'm just mapping out those loose shapes and deciding where things will go. And then I defined the shapes a bit more with a slightly darker green. I'm keeping the sketch fairly loose. I'm just trying to get the idea down without getting too caught up in the details. While I was doing this, I had my headphones on, I was listening to music so I could just zone out and enjoy the process without overthinking anything. And I was really happy with how it turned out. After finishing the watering can sketch, I thought it would be fun to do a similar sketch, but this time have the flowers sitting in a pair of garden boots. So I just followed the same process, a really rough sketch, just mapping out the shapes. And then I did a slightly cleaner version. And by this point, I was getting into it. I was starting to feel like, I kind of have something going on here. So I thought, what if the flowers were coming out of a wheelbarrow? So while I was on a roll, I went ahead and sketched that as well. So as you can see, one small idea has already morphed into 3 sketches, which is a pretty solid start to creating a collection. I mean, it's certainly more progress on this project than I've made in the last 8 months. Of course, I still have a ways to go before I actually finish a completed collection, but I feel like my boulder is down to more like a medium-sized rock now, and this project doesn't feel quite as paralyzing. Over the next few days, I'm just going to keep sketching to see what else I can come up with. And once I pull everything together and I finish at least a few pieces in the collection, maybe I'll share them with my email subscribers, or maybe I'll even post the final artwork on my blog or something. We'll see. Anyway, if you're struggling with creative block, I hope that at least one thing from this video resonates with you. Just to remember, this block is not permanent. Once you pinpoint what's holding you back, you can take small steps towards chipping away at that boulder so you can get back into your creative flow. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.